All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and kick this off a little bit. First of all, thank you so much for just coming out. You can be doing a lot of other things on a Saturday, but you decided to hang out with us, and hopefully you get a chance to learn a few things along the way. Meet some good people. I always tell people, when you come to something like this, if you don't meet at least 10 new people, you've lost a great opportunity. Because there's a lot of folks here, right? All right, good deal. All right, so a little bit about me. We're going to talk about CMMC and how that product and program came along and why we have it. Here's something about me. I'm a retired Army guy, did 21 years and got out after that, and then became a defense contractor, still a defense contractor, almost 20 years doing that. I teach for St. Petersburg College, cybersecurity. I have my own company where I do cybersecurity assessments, and I do mentoring and coaching as well. So I just try to help people. That's really what it comes down to. So that's enough about me. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go through the relationship of FAR and DFAR. So anybody ever heard the term FAR before? If you work with the government, oh yeah, great. You work with the government, you kind of have an idea what FAR is. And then DFARs, and then we're also going to talk about what's called the ecosystem for CMMC. It's really a whole program that's been developed and continuing to be developed. So as we grow with it, you'll have probably even some input or be a part of it. We'll look at NIST 800-171 and 171 Alpha, talk about the differences of the two and why they work together so well. We'll also look at the different types of being certified under what's called the Cyber AB. That's the organization that's been given the accreditation capability by DoD, who actually owns this whole program. And they're the only ones that can certify you for certain things. So we'll talk about these different certifications. The CMMC level 1 and 2 assessments, those we'll dig a little bit into because there's a big part there that if you're going to be, and you may not be right now, or if you're working with a defense contractor, or if you decide to do any business with the government as a whole, you're going to have to fall into one of these categories. And that's why it's so important that we kind of talk about it. And then lastly, we'll talk about the SPRS. This is really a big database that holds a lot of information about your company and where do you stand as far as how your company meets the qualifications assessment-wise that DoD and Cyber AB say you must meet. So that's what we're going to talk about. All right, so here's the first piece, talking about FAR. And as you can see, FAR is something that's been around for a while, and it's the Federal Acquisition Regulation. And in this regulation, it dictates pretty much anything you can think of a company working with the federal government. Things you can do, things you can't do, requirements you must meet. So initially, that's kind of what they use, government, to kind of guide a company on what security parameters, qualifications were needed, because they really had nothing else, which is exactly what led to where we are now. So there were about 15 basic cybersecurity controls. Does anyone not know the term controls? Okay, everybody knows what controls are? Great. They're basically like putting a Band-Aid on. That's control. You're bleeding, Band-Aid, control, right? Yeah, same thing. All right, so then we moved into this CMMC level 1, the basic FAR. There's 17 different pieces that kind of go into that, and we'll talk a little bit about them. And then this piece here at the bottom, where we talk about the federal contract information, we'll dig into that a little bit more because ultimately, this whole program is designed to secure that information there, which is more or less publicly given information, and CUI, which we'll talk about in a second. And the problem was in the past, the government had no insight or control of what was going on with the people that they were contracting out to handle their business. This puts more or less a stringent regulation structure in place that they all have to follow. So these are the 15 basic controls that kind of went into the initial piece of FAR 52.204.21. So you have things like limit access to authorized users, processes rather than devices. What does that mean when you read that? Anybody? Go ahead. What does it tell you?
User identity access management system.
Could be, yeah. Or it could just be user ID and password, right? So it sounds simple, but at least it's something. And then, for example, provide protection for malicious code. Well, if you are someone who does development, coding, that means secure the code before you send it out into the wild. So it makes sense, but there really was no way to verify you were doing this. So that's how we, again, keep moving on. So then we move into DFARS, which is going into the Department of Defense. Same concept that FAR had, but now it's pretty much tied to just Department of Defense. So DFARS, again, is, like it says, implements supplementals to the FAR, and it kind of gets a little more in detail about things you can and can't do relating to DoD as well as the federal government. Things like, you see here, there are policies, procedures, requirements, kind of lays it out a little bit more simply for you. So here's the primary one that ties into what we're working with now for the CUI. It's DFARS 252-204-7012. Here's what it says: safeguard covered defense information and cyber incident reporting. So we're talking about safeguard, if I'm the government, my information. And if you have a problem or there's an incident, please let me know. That's all it's saying. But it kind of breaks it down into a structure. So then NIST, anyone ever heard of NIST or not heard of NIST before? Okay, they're the National Institute of Standard and Technology. They're more or less the gold standard for making standards for IT and things in security, for example. And they have many different types of regulations. So they created this NIST SP, that special publication, 800-171. And it says, protect, control unclassified information in non-federal information systems and organizations. What's the example you think of a non-federal system if you're a company? That's your company, your systems. You're not federal, they are. You're trying to work with them, right? So that means be careful what you put on your systems that I own. That's all they're saying. So this, again, relates back to FAR, but the biggest piece about this is from the FAR, we focus on the FCI, Federal Contract Information. This contract information is basically something that is not catastrophic if information gets out. It's public, but you just want to make sure you manage it a little bit, but it's still public information. Won't hurt anything. The requirements to qualify for FCI is a little different for CUI. Has a little more security pieces tied to the CUI side. This is CUI, Control Unclassified Information. This is what all the noise and buzz is all about, protecting this. Because its use in the past, it was called FOUO, which is really for your information only, right? They decided to change that, and they went to CUI to build that structure a little bit more. And again, notice it takes a lot of things that it had in for the FAR, but it says here, information the government creates or possesses, or this entity creates, possesses on behalf of the government. So if the government hires you to do something, you're kind of being hired by them, which really means it's their stuff. You may create it, develop it, great, but they end up with it at the end. But because of that, you have to protect it as though you were them. Everybody good? Okay, cool. So that's what it's all about. So then it says right here, requiring a permitting rather agencies to control, protect information, controls for doing so, which makes the information CUI specified. Now, there's certain criteria, and the 800-171 speaks to this, that is what describes CUI information, certain levels. Now, we're not talking, and I'm sure you guys from a government perspective ever heard the term secret, unclassified, top secret, all those terms. Okay, this isn't there. This is below that. But it's still information that put in the wrong hands in the times we're in right now, because we have a lot of nation-state actors, which are basically Korea, North Korea, China, people like that. They still want to get whatever they can from us to help do what they need to do and have insight on what we're doing. So that's why that's set up that way. So here's the program. Started back in January 2020. And going back to, like I said, they needed something to build a structure with. And that's where this whole thing came from. It was, again, decided by the Department of Defense. They'll head it up, and then they will manage it. But they created another organization to do that, which is called Cyber AB. We'll talk about them in a sec, to put all this together. Now, what happens is, like it says here, because we're on 2.0 right now, they're working on 3.0, not out yet, but probably by this time next year it'll be out. So it aims to simplify the compliance process. When you hear compliance, what does that mean to any of you guys out there? Anybody?
Checking the box.
Checking the box. What box?
Security control box.
Security control, right? So what does that mean? I have locks on my door. That's control. The book says I have to have it. I got it. Checking the box. Everybody good? So I am now compliant to what the government regulation basically says I need to do. But there's a whole lot more than just that lock. But that's what the whole concept is all about. So these guys here, and it's designed, again, as you can see, for medium-sized, small businesses, and it's security posture of the defense industrial base. It's a big database that kind of says, okay, here are the good guys we can work with because they meet our criteria. And if you're not in that database, then you may not be eligible to work with the government in some form or fashion. But now, to kind of help get to all that, that's where this comes in to help put you there. So when they go look, they can see more information. Did you meet the compliances, all those type of things. So this is the ecosystem of CMMC. So when they put this together, they literally built this from the ground up. It's still in its early stages, which is why a lot of this is still being developed as we talk. So like it says here, the system is designed to decentralize programs, fostering competition, cost reduction for the organizations seeking certification. So as they say here, the OSCs would be your companies. Company X, Company Y. They want to do some work. What work do you want to do? Well, I'd like to be a service provider for the government. I can manage your servers. I can run your network. They're like, okay, I need that, so let's sign you up. You're our guy. These guys have to get checked first, though. So what these people here are, they're the ones that are needing to get checked before they can start working with the government. And that process goes into what's called different stages of people that can help put you there. So the first one we'll look at, this is the registration practitioner organization. There's a company out here, let's say any company, Company B, and their whole purpose is to help you get prepared to meet this certification requirement. That's what they do. The persons that they have doing that are called registered practitioners. They've been certified to now go in and say, okay, let's look at what you have. Do you have locks on your doors? Do you have lights out in the parking lot? You have your server room locked? That type of stuff. So they're prepping you, so when you get ready to do your final certification, you should be good. But the key is, these guys can only prepare you. They cannot certify you. That's not their role. It's another group's role for that. Over here, these are the guys that can help get you certified. So the CA is the Certified CMMC Assessor. It says it in the words. They are assessors. They can go in from what this guy here over here did. The practitioner helped get you prepared. Now these guys can come in and verify and validate that what he said on the paper was good. They'll validate on the paper that you're good. And if that goes through well, then it moves more into the process. Now, these folks right here, C3PAO, third-party assessment organizations, these people here have to work for those guys. Because again, going back to the government and DOD, they said, okay, Cyber AB, who kind of heads up this whole ecosystem, we need to have certain companies that go through our certification process that we trust. And any people that they recommend that work for them, we trust them too. So that's why they're the trusted authority to go out and say, okay, now you're ready to get your final assessment so we can get your certification. Those would be the guys to do it. The other part of that is this person over here called a professional, CCP. So this is the early stages of getting here. So when you first come in on this side, the people who can do the assessments, you'll get your CCP certification. And we'll talk in length about those, but more or less, everything here is going to be like a couple of hours test, just to let you know. Not to scare you. It is what it is, right?
4 hours.
Yeah, I'm being nice. He just finished one of his, so yeah.
Terrible, but if you pass, it's good.
But you made it.
Yes.
Sounds like college, right? You kind of made it. You siege your way through? Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so these folks here are what's called the provisional assessors. This does not exist yet. That's why I said they're still building this program. So the goal is to ultimately create all of these guys rolled up in here. It'll happen sooner or later, but it's not there yet. These people right here are the licensed partners publishers. So they create the material that's going to be used to get these guys certified. So far, so good? Okay. Going back over on this side, this is the licensed training provider. So these folks use their material to train these guys. Everybody following the dots? Okay. So they're only authorized to be able to do that. So a company has to pass the certification to even be a trainer for these certifications. But they're coming. They're not there fully yet, but they're coming. So now you have what's called a CCI, which is an instructor that works for the LPT, the providers, using the LPP's material to teach the CCAs. Anybody lost yet? Sound like alphabet soup, right? Yeah, I mean, a lot of acronyms, but in the end, someone has to teach you, someone has to get certified to go out and help everybody else. That's all it is. And then you got these guys here who haven't existed yet. They're coming with these folks here. So everyone now that's an instructor, they're kind of like a temporary because they haven't created the official provisional instructor certification yet. By this time next year, it'll probably be out. But the system can't wait. And here's the reason why we can't wait. The federal government says, hey, you have to qualify with this 800-171, all the requirements in it, before we even do business. So if they're forcing you to qualify as Company X, then you got to have people like this to get that done. So that's why they're in a temporary interim phase. But in the end, they're still going to be instructors. They'll just have to take another test. So this is the ecosystem. This is all about. This is where you're going to spend your money. I know, when I say money, everybody's like, huh, money? Hate to tell you, it's not like 20 bucks. Throw a few more zeros on the back end, okay? But it's business. Because think of it this way. If it costs $20,000, hypothetically, to get certified, but from that I can make $220,000, was it worth it? It's business, right? And that's how you have to look at it. Oh, and by the way, same thing with certifications. Not that expensive, but you're going to have to pay to play. This is the process for being an assessor. Everything kind of starts right in here. As a CCP, go through your certification process after you take your course. Then you get up here and get your CCA. And then from there, you're able to kind of go out and says, I'm your assessor now. But keep in mind, if you were to get certified as a professional, before you do your CCA, you still can go out and help a company get prepared. That's something you can, so you can kind of do both. But here's where the problem comes in. If this guy here went out and prepped Company B, it would have to be this guy here to go out and assess them. You can't prep and assess. That's a foul. Red flag comes out, right? Penalty. So you have to have partners in this thing. So if you are a company or a person who is a CCP or is RP, like we talked about earlier, you can prep. But hopefully you have a network of partners that you can reach out to that you trust, so you can now go in and assess. And that's how this whole ecosystem of infrastructure is going to work. Because it's not a one-man band. It's really a team effort. And that's why it's important to make sure we all network relating to it. Okay, so this is the folks who've been put in charge to handle things, the Cyber AAB, which used to be another name. And these are the organizations here that everyone's authorized to go do those assessments, like I was telling you earlier. So Cyber AAB, again, they accreditate the CMMC ecosystem, and then from there, their primary mission, AB is to authorize, accredit the CMC third party, which is C3PAOs. They've been given that authority, and that's what they do. And then they conduct the CMC assessment of companies in the DIB. Remember I told you it's a big database? The people who are trusted are in that database. And they manage the ecosystem for DoD. So that's what all this kind of wraps up into. So it's a program. It's not just one thing. It's a whole combination of many things. And each one has their own important part. So let's kind of fast forward. So we went back to the FAR and the DFARs. And from that came the NIST SP 800-171. And notice the 171 says protect and control unclassified information in non-federal systems and organizations. That's what it's designed for. You take care of my stuff if you're working for me as a government. That's all. Over on this side, though, the alpha is assessing security requirements for control. So this is what's going to kind of break down the details of what type of lock I need to have on that door. How do I set up my users for if they try to log in more than 3 times, do they get locked out? Access control type things? That's more or less specified in here. It's generalized here as you got to do this. But this shows you how to do it or what it should be like. So when these people go out and do the preparation, they're literally using a spreadsheet, more or less, if you were to say, that has all these various controls, and they just walk through, okay, show me how you do this. Where do you keep your policies on people who are leaving your organization? Yes, sir.
Is for the 171A, is that cross-reference with the NIST 853?
Yes.
So you can look at that?
Yes. And I'll talk about that in a second, but thank you, yes. So this is, again, just detailing things down. So from here, as you can see, I kind of threw some numbers up here. This has 110 specified. This is breaking down the 320 that actually make up that number. I know, the math does not match. And the reason why, there's a lot of subsections under one control. And that's where it all kind of gets mixed up at, which is why the numbers are so much higher here, because this is digging into those subsections. Everybody good? Okay. So the 800-171 version 2, which we're on now, they're working on version 3, not out yet. And like I said, the 172, so like it says here, the framework consists of 800 and 171, should be version, not rev. I'm sorry, yeah. 2, protect and control classified non-federal system organizations, and the subsets of 172, which is enhancing. 172 is really going to speak to a higher level of security than the 171 is. That's kind of where we're going. So we got the is, and then we have the to be. So they're going to be the same, but more added on top that you have to secure. So these are the various levels that kind of play into the role of what type of information your company can work with, or you, and what you've gone through to meet that qualification. So here, level 1 is pretty much the basic foundation. There's 17 various practices to tie into it, and once you get certified here, and there really is no documentation for certification. So you can do what's called a self-assessment, meaning you take that spreadsheet that has all the controls from 800-171, and you walk through it yourself on the honor system, wink, wink, and say, I checked all the boxes. They're not going to send somebody in to double check that. They're going to trust you. And, oh, by the way, if you decide to do business anywhere, if you're telling them something that's not true, you'll never do business again. So no big deal. You're good. Tell the truth. So this ties into both 171 and the FAR. Now this level here, you're working with the CUI data, control unclassified information, this is really where it gets sticky, because this is where you have to go through the actual preparation piece and then have a CA come in and certify you that you met all the requirements. So this is really where you're honored with a certificate from Cyber AB saying this company is good. They've checked the box and you can work with them. Until all that takes place, you really can't. Where we're going is 3, probably 05, worst case, it'll be out. 3 is going to be another level, but with more high priority risk controls tied to it. So basically what they're doing, they have a baseline, if you were to say, and more or less from the CUI area, that's here, and they just continue to stack on a few more controls just to make sure you're really in good shape to work with us. Everybody okay? All right. So these are some of the basic levels that go with the model structure. The basic level covers the basic security requirements for protecting FCI, Federal Contract Information, information not intended for the public release, based on 17 basic requirements. That was like that level 1 we just talked about. Level 2, intermediate, covers the intermediate security requirements for protecting CUI. Security objectives at that level is to protect CUI from unauthorized disclosure. So meaning if someone's not supposed to see it, they shouldn't see it. Even though it is public, only authorized people in the public are able to see it. Does that make sense? Okay. And then lastly, you have the advanced, which is going to be level 3. And like it says here, covers the enhanced security requirements for CUI, critical programs, or high-value assets. So now we're kind of creeping into, we're not into the secret realm yet, but we're kind of a little bit below it, but a little higher than just the regular CUI. That's why it's going to be more enhanced controls. And notice here it says it's based on 131 requirements from the 171 and 172 plus 32 additional. This is where the problems come in for all the companies who want to do this. Because you may not have the money, not to have it done, to sustain it. Because let's say if they say, all right, let me see what your security stack looks like. Do you have a firewall, IDS, email gateway, any of that stuff kind of tied in together? Well, let's just say if that was a requirement, some of it actually kind of is. If you don't have it, how are you going to get it? You're going to have to spend the money to bring your infrastructure up to a standard to even get assessed. Because what's going to happen is, if you haven't even passed that level 1, where you can do a self-assessment, and then you want to go to level 2, where someone comes in and actually does an official preparation for you, you can't even get the final assessment for certification. That C3PAO, they're not even going to talk to you until you've gone through that process of getting evaluated properly. Because you're wasting their time, which means you're not going to get certified, which also means you have no business. So this is going to be an investment, and this is where a lot of people are kind of having problems. They like the idea, they like the concepts, but there's going to be a cost. And small business mom and pop shops, even medium-sized businesses, depending on how many people they have on payroll, they really don't have the funds, which is why they're not pushing this to be done like tomorrow. They understand all those pieces, and they're pushing it out. They're being a little lenient because they understand people have to build up to get this piece in place to have all this stuff taken care of. So it's still, like I said, process in the works, but that's where we're going. This kind of gives you a general idea of the level 1 we were talking about, identifying who should and should have access, to FCI. That's that basic level, federal contract information. Limiting physical access to systems that cannot contain FCI via locks, keys, cards. So it's like a swipe card, CAT card. Ensure that only properly authenticated users can access the system. So it's kind of keeping it at the low level. And again, these 17, I would support that. Level 2 is where things change. This is where I was telling you, you have to go through the process and actually go through the certification process by a CCA, and the C3PAO, who they work for, to get the checkbox that you are good. So as you can see, you have these objectives. That's where that 320 comes from, and they all feed into 110 controls. And then there's basically 14 families of controls, and I'll show you those in a second. These are the families. So you get a general idea. They're covering head to toe. You have awareness and training. What do you think that is? Train your people, right? Phishing, OPSEC, as in don't put out information that's not needing to be out in the streets. Risk assessment. What is the risk of someone hitting you with a cyber attack? That's part of it. Systems and communication protection. That could be your servers that houses all your data. How are you protecting that? Do you have it in a nice server room with a door that doesn't have a lock on it? A little tricky on that one, right? So as you can see, it's a whole category of things, which is why the subsections is what creates that 320, because they all have sublayers. This is the overall process if you were to do it. So the company, OSC, they basically say, okay, we're ready to do it. So you'll have someone come in, and if you're doing it the self-assessment way, you don't have to worry about all of this. You just take this, more or less, the checklist from 171, and you complete it. You put it out on CPRS, which we'll talk about next. That's a big database that says we have done the task. And then you sign off on it, and you're good. That's just for the FCI level, though, not the CUI, control unclassified information. If you want to go that route, you have to go up here. Same thing, but then you will have that company come in with a CCA, and they'll walk you through this. They'll say, okay, let's conduct a gap assessment, identify what your scope is, what you want to do, engage the professionals, identify your level 2, maintain it, and then you hit the identified, schedule, pass. Again, this is passing the requirement for the assessment. And then you get your cert. And then you take everybody out for dinner. Probably not. Maybe McDonald's and share a burger because you're broke. But it's okay. Good idea. You thought about them. It's all about the thought. Yeah. All right, so these are the 5 steps if you want to try to get ready and get prepped for this thing. 1, start preparing today. And the reason why, because it's coming, whether you want it or not, it's going to come. And where you prepared. Go ahead.
I'm told first quarter next year.
Yeah.
So March of 25 is what the community.
Yeah, so give or take here or there, but 2025 is going to happen. I guess that's the best way to put it. So you want to, again, make sure things are good, put together required documentation, as in your policies and all these other things that your organization operates from. Do a gap analysis. Does anybody know what a gap analysis is? What's a gap analysis, sir?
To figure out what's missing between what you have and what you need.
Correct, exactly. So you do your self-assessment, and being honest, you see all the spots that are empty that you can't check because you don't have. That is your gap. Then you have to put a plan together. How are we going to fill this gap to meet the requirement? So that's what they're talking about. Conduct that self-assessment, like we just talked about. Then consult with the CMMC professional, or the C3PAO rather, when you're ready to go live for your final cert. And they'll take care of you. Prepare your audit, because you don't get audit. And like it says here, only the C3PAO is qualified for the audit itself. The assessor will first speak with you to determine your needs, because everyone's different, size of the business, things you operate on, all different. Still going to want documentation, and like it says, evaluate controls for protecting FCI or CUI, whichever you feel you need. And then, of course, documents would be like diagrams, network diagrams, for example. How is your data flow? Does it start here and go out? Well, how does it get out? Is there a way someone can break that security chain of information going out? That's going to be looked at. Vulnerabilities. What's a vulnerability scan? Yeah, you're checking your system to see where I have my holes at. Every system has holes. Don't ever think it doesn't. Even your house, your system at home, Microsoft updates that too, right? So that's what you have to show. And then list your various controls that you're operating off of. Lastly, submit your assessment. And this is where it's going to come in to work with that C3PAO. You do your security plan. Basically, your security plan talks about each and every one of those controls and how you're going to perform them. But also, how do you monitor that after you check the box on that you have it done? Again, it ties to that 14 families of those colored controls that we looked at. If it's something you don't have from that gap analysis like we talked about, you put it on what's called a plan of action and milestones, POAM. And all that says is, hey, look, I know, I don't have that router. It's a risk. I'm accepting the risk temporarily, but I can't have it fixed within the next 180 days. Okay. Because you at least identified it. Still doesn't mean you got it, but you know you need it. And that's where it starts. Then again, like it says, CMC requires ongoing monitoring and evidence. So once they do the checklist, everything's good, they still want to know, what is your plan to maintain this? Because, oh, by the way, this has to be done every 3 years. And if you're FCI, it's every year. That's where the sustainment comes to play. Because if you can maintain it, it's much easier to get reevaluated. But you have to maintain it. This is a database that you put all that information in, the 110 controls that you do for your assessment. It goes into here, Supplier Performance Risk Systems. You upload all that information in here, and this is where the government is able to access this and actually look at your score. So 110 is kind of the ultimate score everyone's trying to get to. Anywhere from a minus 205 to the max of 110. Everyone starts below the water. You got to get to the water at least. You get a shot if you get to the water. So again, just a little bit more about it. Again, like it says, breakdowns, and this is what I was telling you about earlier. The 203, negative 203 to 110. So the more you go through those 110 controls, for example, 14 families, each one has a number. Each control has a number. So if you have locks and lock is a requirement, it may be 4 points. So you start at negative 205, and you're kind of working your way up the chain. So then you add 4 positive points to that negative number. And that's how you get to the waterline. And ultimately, above it, it's nothing written right now, but as it's being told, when this goes live, if you're not, and don't quote me, this is kind of where I'm getting information on, if you're not at least around 80, you're not going to get a business contract.
It's 88. Yeah.
I was being kind, yeah. Because what they're saying is your security infrastructure is not there yet. So that's kind of like the bare minimum. 110 would be the max. Some will get there, some may not. But they're not going to hold you that you don't. But at least you have a window. So the goal is for everyone at least getting to that cutoff point of 88. And that may take a year, 2 years. Just depends on your organization, what you do, your resources. Yes, sir.
When you were speaking on ongoing monitoring, does that mean that they have some type of portal where you would supply monthly vulnerability scans, any major changes in your infrastructure, which includes additions or
So,
changes to your security?
no,
programs?
they're expecting you to maintain that. But that SPRS, this area right here, when it comes time to reassess you, they're going to go here and look at your previous SSP, your security plan, check it out, and then when they look at your current one, and say, okay, well, what happened? You were good. Oh, you lost some people. I understand. But you still failed. I don't make the rules, right? But this is how it's going to work. So that's why the goal is to, again, get to that score now, which is why you need to start now, so you won't have to get to the last minute and you think you have business and you have no business. Some general information on facts. what do I need to do rather to be compliant? We talked about that already. How much does it cost? That could vary. Again, size of the organization, what your organization operation is, who you're supporting. So there's no set number, but it's going to be a little change. What are the steps to become compliant? Engage with the DoD, establish procurement account, obtain and active status. So that's that CPRS. You'll have to have that set up as well. Conduct your assessment, understand the scope of the assessment, develop a plan, as in my gap analysis, what don't I have and how am I going to attack that to get myself up to speed. Submit your assessment scope, demonstrate for readiness, get the C3PAO that says, hey, you're green, you're good. It's kind of like, anybody watch Amazing Race? On Amazing Race, you get to that point, they give you the card, you're like, that's these guys. And again, pass-fail certificate. So what are the compliance deadlines? This is what they're saying right now. Maybe, I don't know. They're looking at the overall architecture of everything across the board globally, and can people get there by that time? So it may slip.
So, question for you. So, I mean, based on everything that you said, it sounds like the maturity level that they're aiming for is probably a 3 in between 3 and 4.
More or less, but 2 right now will get you by.
Which stinks.
If you get to level 2, that still suffices for you've met our minimum basic requirements. And that's really all you want from a contractual standpoint to do business, right? And then you can build from there. So these are the resources here. That's information on me. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hey, sir. So when you're dealing with like infrastructure as a service or software as a service, Amazon, O365, and stuff like
Yep.
that, when it gets time to validate those security checkpoints, and I haven't dug deep into CMMC checkpoints itself, but do you pass those security checkpoints off as your own? Do you exempt it? Because
Right.
technically you do have an email service,
Right.
but that's handled by Microsoft.
Right.
You do have,
So you have a service provider providing a service for you. So great question. There's 2 answers to that question. One, and we'll use Microsoft. Azure, for example. Azure is their cloud. Microsoft has to get certified with Azure to meet the requirement. You also, as a company working with Microsoft, need to make sure you're covered. Because here's what the problem is. Let's say something happens in the cloud. They're not going after Microsoft. They're going after you. Because you hired them. They didn't tell you to go get those guys. You got AWS, Google, whomever. That was your choice. It's like a bank. You put your money in a bank goes bankrupt. You're going after the bank, not the people who stole the money, right? Same concept. So that's also part of the big picture right now of the conversation, because people are curious about, am I still responsible? Kind of, sort of. The way you get around that, though, before you even do business with company A and B, you look at their policies. And if they don't have them, then you find out, well, when are you going to get them? And oh, by the way, once you do get them, how can I get access to my own logs, for example? So I can, as we call in our business, trust but verify, right? So I kind of trust you, but not really. So it's on you to build that up. And doing a service level agreement, sometimes SLA, that's kind of how you kick that in.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
can take that a little bit from an assessor perspective. When you're doing a FedRAMP certified provider, we're going to look at that shared responsibility matrix. If you're already FedRAMP certified with the government, so what are you doing? What's the provider doing? And can you prove it, right? So it's about that shared responsibility matrix.
Microsoft publishes the shared responsibility matrix. You can download it and use.
Yeah, it's already online. Microsoft's, they're covered.
so when you're doing that spreadsheet and you're identifying what your controls are, so then you would say, hey, I'm an O365 tenant. This is my tenant ID,
Inherited,
whatever information, and then at that
Correct.
point it no longer becomes your responsibility, but they know hey, that's covered by Microsoft.
Right.
Trusted
Right.
because of that FedRAMP.
But they may say, hey, can you show me your documentation to where you're communicating with them? Do they allow you to see your logs from your servers? So there's not going to be just, oh, okay, no problem. They're good. They're going to dig into that. All right? Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I'll get you next time.
Because I do this, with other things, is you need to also have, a risk management meeting where you will examine all that material, so you don't have to feel like, oh yeah, we're on Microsoft, yeah, whatever. No, you have gotten their material, you have looked
Yes.
over it, you make sure that everything is good, you don't have any issues.
Correct.
And this sort of stuff. And this is true for all these sort of certifications.
Yes.
That you're doing, SOC or 27001 or whatever. If
Mhm.
you're relying upon third parties, you better be having at least an annual meeting where you're reviewing their report
Right.
and information and making sure everything's copacetic.
Correct. Great point. Yes, sir.
What's the difference between a CMMC assessment and like a DIPCAT audit for systems that are already in SPRS?
Right. So the DIBCAT's a different house, and they look at some different things. So they're not expecting mom and pop shop that kind of does some hardware support for big government to have to meet that criteria, which is why they use this, which is a little more scaled down. That's the difference between the two. Yep.
So to become
Go
a
ahead.
C3PAO, you need a DIPCAT audit.
Yeah.
That's a government oversaw.
And that's what qualifies them to certify you. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you have any automation tools which can run the script in my system and spits out my GRC score?
Yes. There's a few out there. Get back with me. I'll give you the names. I can't think off the top of my head, but there's two in particular. Yeah. Yeah. But there's software, yes, that you can work with
But it does
to help you.
work in alignment with the framework?
No, you're still going to have to put some information in yourself, but it's aligned with it. So what these companies have done, they're smart. They develop the controls in an automated fashion. Just like in the government realm, we use a tool called EMAS. And EMAS basically is just everything I just talked about, but it's from 853, which is a whole lot more controls, but it's all automated. So you go in there, you go in the system, and it pulls up control 3.1, and it tells you what it's supposed to be, and you put in information how you meet it and your justification. That's the exact same thing that these companies are starting to build for this. Just a different set of controls.
There's lots of them out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, folks, I want to go past one. Yes, sir.
Just a quick one, having shown my age here. Is this a replacement for what used to be framed as certification of the network by DOD? I mean, it seems to be all encompassing.
Kind of, sort of, but they're trying to make it a little more robust.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys, thanks so much. Appreciate you coming out.